Oops, he unintentionally upgraded her cupcakes to bazookas, and now she's totally flustered. Marcus Hale wiped sweat from his brow as he tightened the last bolt on the maintenance panel. The artificial gravity on Starbase Epsilon always seemed to run a bit heavy in the engineering sections, making his muscles work overtime. Not that he minded. Years of hauling equipment across various space stations had given him a physique that turned heads human and alien alike. Almost done here, he muttered to himself, sliding his multi-tool back into his utility belt. The station's environmental systems had been acting up all week, and as the only human technician aboard, he'd been working double shifts to sort out the mess. The cooter hummed with the familiar sounds of the station, the soft whir of air recyclers, distant conversations in a dozen different languages, and the occasional announcement over the comp system. Marcus had been stationed here for 8 standard months now, the lone human among a crew of nearly 300 aliens from across the galactic chord. He moved to the next panel, which looked different from the others, sleeker with unfamiliar markings. Must be new equipment, he thought, or maybe something specific to the Zeri section of the station. The Zeri were relative newcomers to the Concord, their bright yellow skin and snow-white hair making them stand out even among the diverse population of the station. Strange, he mumbled, examining the unmarked buttons. No maintenance tag, no warning labels. He tapped his control. This is Hale. I've got an unidentified panel in section 7B. Any idea what it is? Static answered him. The comm systems in this section had been spotty all day. Guess I'll have to figure it out myself, he said with a shrug. Wouldn't be the first time. He pressed what looked like a diagnostic button, then adjusted what appeared to be a calibration dial. Excuse me, what are you doing with that? A melodic voice called from behind him. Marcus turned to find a Zer woman approaching, her bright yellow skin contrasting beautifully with her pristine white uniform in matching snow white hair. Her blue eyes, wide and alert, were fixed on the panel he was working on. Just running some diagnostics on this, he began, but it was cut off by a sudden beep from the panel. A soft blue light pulsed outward, enveloping the Zeri woman. What the Marcus stepped back, startled. The light faded as quickly as it had appeared. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Zil woman gasped, her hands flying to her chest. By the stars, she exclaimed, looking down at herself in shock. Her previously modest chest had expanded significantly, straining against her formerly loose-fitting uniform. What did you do to my body? She cried out, her voice rising in panic as she stared at her newly enhanced figure. Why did it become so huge? Marcus stood frozen, the device still in his hand, his face flushing red with embarrassment. I thought it was just a climate control panel, he stammered. I had no idea something like this would happen. Climate control, she sputtered, her blue eyes flashing with a mixture of shock and indignation. This is a prototype molecular reconfiguration device. It's supposed to be locked in the research lab. Marcus winced. I'm so sorry, I had no idea. He looked at the device more carefully now, noticing the subtle research markings he'd missed before. Can we reverse it? The Zeri woman took a deep breath, composing herself. My name is Tierra Thal, head of Stenobiology Research, and you are Marcus Hale, Environmental Systems Technician, he replied, extending his hand before awkwardly withdrawing it. Unsure if Zeri shook hands. Well, Marcus Hale, she said, her voice steadier now, though her eyes occasionally darted down to her altered chest. You've just activated a highly experimental device that it's not supposed to exist outside of theoretical papers. Can we fix it? He asked again, desperately hoping the answer was yes. Tia sighed, adjusting her uniform uncomfortably. Possibly, but first we need to get this device back to my lab before anyone else sees it, or me for that matter. She glanced down at herself again and frowned. This is going to be difficult to explain to the station commander. Marcus nodded, carefully picking up the device. Lead the way. As they walked briskly through the corridors, taking less traveled routes to avoid curious eyes, Marcus couldn't help but notice how Tia's gait had changed to accommodate her new proportions. Despite her obvious discomfort, she carried herself with dignity, so Marcus ventured, trying to break the awkward silence. Xenobiology, that must be fascinating work. Tia shot him a sideways glance, more fascinating than accidentally altering alien physiology. I assure you, Marcus Ed Fairpoint, I really am sorry about this. Save your apologies for after we fix this mesh, she replied, but her tone had softened slightly, though I must admit. I'm scientifically curious about how the device targeted only a specific tissue. They turned a corner and nearly collided with a tall mantis-like alien in a security uniform officer, Keltia said. Suddenly positioning herself behind Marcus Durthel, the security officer clicked, compound eyes shifting between them. Is everything all right? You seem different just escorting this human. To my lab, she said smoothly. He's assisting with an experiment, I see, Kel replied. Mandibles twitching in what might have been suspicion. Carry on. Then as they continued down the corridor, Marcus whispered, quick thinking necessity. Trar replied, now hurry, my lab is just ahead, and we have a lot of work to do if we're going to fix your little enhancement. Error, our little enhancement error, Marcus corrected with a slight smile. Despite herself, Taya's lips quirked. Upward, fine, our little enhancement error, but if you ever tell anyone about this. My lips are sealed, Marcus promised, making a locking motion across his mouth. Besides, who would believe me anyway? As they approached the laboratory door, Marcus noticed Taya's growing tension. Her shoulders stiffened, and her pace slowed. What's wrong? He whispered, clutching the dev closer to his chest. Something's not right, she murmured. The security protocol is disengaged. She pointed to a small light above the door that glowed green instead of red. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Maybe you forgot to activate it when you left. I never forget security protocols, she replied firmly. Someone's inside. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a spacious laboratory filled with gleaming equipment and station. Commander Dare standing in the center, his tall, imposing figure impossible to miss. His gray skin had the texture of weathered stone, and his forearms were clasped behind his back in what Marcus recognized as the Vorian stance of authority. Dr. Thur's deep voice rumbled through the room, and technician Hale, is it? What an unexpected pairing. Tia stepped forward, subtly positioning herself to minimize the visibility of her altered physique. Commander Drell, I wasn't expecting you in my laboratory. Clearly, Drell replied, his 6 eyes narrowing as they focused on the device in Marcus' hands, just as I wasn't expecting to find that a highly classified experimental device had been removed from the secure research section without authorization. Marcus felt sweat beading on his forehead. Sir, I can explain. Can you? Drell interrupted, taking a step closer, because I'm very interested to hear how a human maintenance worker gained access to a prototype that even most of my senior staff don't know exists. Tia cleared her throat. Commander, it was my authorization. I recruited technician Hale to assist with some calibrations that required his unique perspective. Unique perspective, Drell repeated skeptically. Human physiology. Tra continued smoothly. The device was designed with multiple species in mind, but we've had difficulty calibrating it for humans since technician Hale is our only human crew member. His assistance was invaluable. Marcus tried to keep his expression neutral, impressed by Tia's quick thinking. He nodded in agreement, hoping his face wasn't betraying their deception. And why wasn't this request processed through proper channels? Der demanded urgency. Sir, Marcus chimed in. Der Thal mentioned a degradation in the molecular matrix that required immediate attention. Der's eyes shifted between them, suspicion evident. Then what exactly does this device do, Doctor? The project files are surprisingly vague. Tia hesitated just long enough for Marcus to notice it's a targeted cellular enhancement tool, sir, designed primarily for medical applications, tissue regeneration, cellular repair, that sort of thing. I see, Drell said, though his tone suggested he didn't entirely believe them. And has your collaboration yielded results? As Marcus couldn't help but glance at Tia's enhanced chest, you could say that he muttered. Tra shot him a warning look before addressing Drell. We've made progress, yeah, but we need to run more tests before submitting an official report. Der stepped closer to Tra, studying her intently. You seem different today. Dr. Tia straightened her posture, which only emphasized her new proportions. New uniform, she said quickly. The science division is testing a different fabric. Der hummed, unconvinced. Well, I expect a full report on my desk by tomorrow morning, and in the future all equipment transfers must follow proper protocols. regardless of urgency. Is that understood perfectly, Sir. T.I. nodded. Technician Haildrell turned his attention to Marcus. You're scheduled for environmental maintenance in the diplomatic quarter this afternoon. Don't be late. Yes, sir, Marcus replied, resisting the urge. Salute with one final suspicious glance. Ditter strode out of the laboratory, the door hissing shut behind him. Marcus exhaled loudly. That was close, too close. Tia agreed, hurrying to a console and activating the security protocols. The light above the door switched from green to red. And now we have less than a day to figure this out. Marcus placed the device carefully on a nearby workstation. So what's the real story with this thing? Targeted cellular enhancement tool that's actually not far from the truth, Tra admitted, approaching the device. It was designed to accelerate healing in specific tissues, but it's still experimental and clearly the targeting parameters need refinement. Marcus watched as she began connecting the device to various diagnostic equipment. Her movements were precise and efficient, but he couldn't help noticing how she had to adjust her stance to accommodate her new proportions. There was something oddly captivating about her determination despite the awkward circumstances. Can I help? He offered. Tia glanced up, seeming surprised by the offer. You know anything about xenobiology or molecular reconfiguration? Not specifically, Marcus admitted with a grin, but I'm a fast learner, and I've got a vested interest in fixing this mess. A small smile tugged at Tia's lips. Fair enough, you can start by helping me calibrate these scanners. I need to understand exactly what the device did to my cellular structure. As they worked side by side, Marcus became increasingly aware of Tia's proximity. The laboratory wasn't small, but they kept finding themselves reaching for the same tools, brushing against each other as they moved between workstations. Each accidental contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. Sorry, he mumbled after their hands collided for the third time. It's fine, Mama, Tayo replied, though he noticed a deeper yellow flush spreading across her cheeks. Human body temperature is higher than Zeri norm. It's noticeable. Is that bad? Marcus asked, suddenly self-conscious. No, Tia said quickly, then added more softly, it's actually quite pleasant. Zori, run cold by your standards. Marcus wasn't sure how to respond to that, so he focused on adjusting the scanner as she'd instructed. So these readings, what are we looking for? Ti leaned closer to examine the display, her shoulder pressing against his. Cellular stability primarily. I need to make sure the enhancements aren't causing any dangerous mutations. And are they? Marcus asked, acutely aware of her sense. Something like cinnamon and ozone. No, she said, sounding relieved. The changes appear stable, but they're also more extensive than I initially thought. Meaning? Tia turned to face him, their faces unexpectedly close. Meaning the device didn't just increase tissue mass, it altered the tissue composition itself. Made it more responsive, Marcus repeated, finding it suddenly difficult to maintain eye contact to stimuli. She clarified, her voice dropping slightly. Temperature, pressure, touch. Oh, was all Marcus could manage. His mouth suddenly dry. Tia stepped back, breaking the moment. We should continue the analysis we have until morning to figure this out. Marcus nodded, trying to refocus on the task at hand. But as they continued working through the afternoon, the air between them seemed charged with an unfamiliar tension. Every glance, every accidental touch carried new weight. By the time they'd completed the initial diagnostics, Marcus had almost forgotten about his scheduled maintenance in the diplomatic quarter. Almost. __, he muttered, checking the time. I've got to go, or Drell will have more questions than we want to answer. Tia nodded. Go, I'll continue analyzing the data. Come back after your shift, and we determine our next steps. You sure you'll be okay? Marcus asked, hesitating at the door. Tia gave him a wry smile. I'm a scientist, Marcus. I've handled worse situations than unexpected bodily enhancements. Fair enough, he chuckled. I'll be back as soon as I can. As the door closed behind him, Marcus found himself hurrying through the corridors with a strange mix of anxiety and anticipation. The sooner he finished his maintenance duties, the sooner he could return to Ti's lab to fix the problem. He reminded himself firmly, nothing more. But even as he thought it, he knew something had shifted between them, something neither of them had anticipated, and somehow that seemed more significant than any accidental physical enhancement. The diplomatic quarter of Starbase Epsilon gleamed with polished surfaces in elegant architecture designed to impress visiting dignitaries from across the galaxy. Marcus moved methodically through the environmental control systems, his hands working automatically while his mind remained firmly back in Tia's laboratory, careful with that coupling. Human, it's Arcturian crystal, not your crude Earth metals. Marcus looked up to find an elderly Zeri male observing him, leaning on an ornate cane. Unlike Tia's bright yellow complexion, this Zeri skin had faded to a pale amber, with age spots dotting his exposed arms. His white hair was thinning, but his blue eyes remained sharp and alert. "Sorry, sir," Marcus replied, securing the coupling with extra care. "Just routine maintenance, nothing routine about a human on this station," the elders Ofar remarked, moving closer, "especially one whose mind is clearly elsewhere." Marcus straightened. "Ambassador, Professor." The old Zori corrected. "Professor Val, retired now, but they still give me quarters in the diplomatic section. Perks of pioneering Zer medical technology, I suppose." Marcus's attention sharpened immediately. "Medical technology like cellular regeneration." Professor V's eyes narrowed with interest. "Among other things, why does a maintenance technician ask about specialized medical fields?" Marcus hesitated, weighing his options. If anyone might know about the device, it would be someone like V, but revealing Tia's situation to a stranger seemed like a betrayal. "Just curious," Marcus said finally. "I'm working with Dr. Tile on some equipment calibration." Tile V's expression brightened. "Brilliant. Young researcher, one of my former students. Actually, how is she? I haven't seen her in some time." "She's changed a bit since you last saw her," Marcus said carefully. Val chuckled. "Haven't we all? The passage of time spares no species." This was a more sudden change, Marcus admitted, then made a decision. "Professor, if I tell you something in confidence, would you be willing to help us? It might involve bending a few regulations." V's eyes twinkled. "Young man, I've been bending regulations since before your parents were born. Tell me what trouble you and Tia have gotten yourselves into." By the time Marcus finished explaining, Val was leaning heavily on his cane, shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. "So you accidentally enhanced her," he wheezed, "with the Micro 7 prototype." "You know the device?" Marcus asked eagerly. "Know it. I helped to design the original concept 30 years ago," Val said, regaining his composure. "Though we never got it working properly. Too many unintended side effects, like what happened to Tia. That's actually more controlled than our early attempts." Val admitted, "We once turned a research assistant's arm into something resembling a Jovian tentacle squid." Marcus winced. "Can you help us reverse it?" Vale's expression grew serious. "Possibly, but there's something you should know about the MCR technology. The cellular changes become permanent after approximately 24 standard hours. After that, attempting to reverse them could cause catastrophic cellular degradation, meaning your doctor could experience tissue failure if you wait too long," Val said gravely. "How long has it been since the incident?" Marcus checked his chronometer. "About 6 hours. "Then we have time, but not much," Val said. "Already moving toward the exit. Finish your work quickly, then meet me at Tia's laboratory, and bring a standard molecular stabilizer from your maintenance kit. We'll need it." When Marcus arrived at the lab an hour later, he found Tia and Professor V in heated discussion over a holographic display of cellular structures. "Marcus," Tia exclaimed, her expression a mix of relief and irritation. "You told him I had to," Marcus replied, setting down his toolkit. "He knows the device. He helped create it. And it's a good thing he told me." Interjected, "Because you, my dear former student, are in more trouble than you realize." Tia crossed her arms, which only emphasized her enhanced chest. "I've already discovered the 24-hour window, Professor." "Then you know we need to act quickly," V said. "But there's another complication. Commander Drell has ordered a full inventory of all search equipment for tomorrow morning." "What?" Why, Tira demanded. "Apparently some items have gone missing," Val said with a pointed look at the device, including prototype and sewer technology. Marcus groaned. "So even if we fix Tia, we still have to return the device, or we're all screwed?" "Precisely," Vile nodded, "which is why I suggest a two-pronged approach. I'll help Tia prepare for the reversal procedure, while you, Mr. Hale, create a convincing decoy to return to the secure research section." "A decoy?" Marcus frowned. "I'm good with my hands, but I'm not sure I can replicate advanced Solari technology with spare parts you don't need to," V said, pulling up schematics on a nearby screen. "The external housing is fairly simple. We just need something that looks identical for the inventory. They won't actually test it until next week's research cycle." Tia looks skeptical. "That's risky." "Professor, riskier than explaining to Drell while you suddenly have an enhanced physique," Val countered with a raised eyebrow. Tia conceded the point with a sigh. "Ah, fine, Marcus. There's a fabrication unit in the storage room. You can use it to create the external components." As Marcus headed to the storage room, he heard Vile say to Tia, "Now about these cellular changes. The enhancement seems to have affected your neural pathways as well. Are you experiencing any unusual sensations?" The storage room was crank but well organized. Marcus quickly located the fabrication unit and loaded the schematics V had transferred. As the machine hummed to life, he leaned against a shelf, exhaustion suddenly hitting him. It had been a long day, and it wasn't over yet. The door slid open, and Tia entered looking equally tired. "How's it going with the professor?" Marcus asked. "He's brilliant but exhausting," Tia admitted, moving to stand beside him. "Thank you for finding him. I wouldn't have thought to look for help outside the L. Sometimes an outside perspective helps." Marcus shrugged. "That's what humans are good for, right? Unexpected approaches to problems." Tia studied him with those intense blue eyes. "You're more than just an unexpected approach, Marcus." The fabricator beeped, indicating it needed additional materials. Marcus turned to retrieve them from a nearby cabinet, acutely aware of Tia following him. "The professor mentioned something interesting," she said, her voice softer than usual. "The neural pathway changes the device caused their enhancing sensory perception, especially physical sensations." Marcus nearly dropped the component he was holding. "Is that dangerous?" "No," Tia said, moving closer. "Just intense and can end temporary once we reverse the process." Their eyes met, and Marcus suddenly understood what she wasn't saying directly. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken possibility. "Tear," he began, not entirely sure what he was going to say. "Zeri physiology is different from human," she continued, her yellow skin flushing a deeper gold. We don't usually experience things the way humans do with such intensity." "And now?" Marcus asked, his voice dropping to match hers. "Now I understand why humans are so driven by physical connection," she admitted. "It's overwhelming." Marcus sat down the component, turning to face her fully. "We should focus on fixing this." "We are," Tia said, stepping closer. "The reversal process needs another 2 hours to synthesize the decoy. Will take at least that long to fabricate, so we wait." Marcus said, suddenly very aware of how small the storage room was. "We wait." Trera agreed, her eyes never leaving his. "But Marcus, if this is my only chance to experience sensation the way humans do, I don't want to waste it." The implication of her words hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his heart rate accelerate, a mixture of desire and uncertainty coursing through him. "Are you sure?" he asked, giving her every chance to step back. Instead, Tia closed the distance between them, her enhanced chest brushing against him as she reached up to touch his face. "Humans always ask for certainty," she murmured. "Another fascinating cultural difference. Solari embraced the unknown." When their lips met, Marcus discovered yet another difference between their species. Zeri ran cooler than humans, making Tia's mouth feel refreshingly cool against his, but her response was anything but cold, her enhanced sensitivity making her gasp at even the lightest touch. Time seemed to blur as they explore these new sensations together, the fabricator humming forgotten in the background. Cultural differences melted away in the face of more fundamental connections, desire, curiosity, and the unique intimacy of two beings finding comfort in each other amid chaos. Later, as they lay entangled on the emergency blankets Marcus had found in a supply cabinet, Tia traced patterns on his chest with cool yellow fingers. "Your species' approach to physical intimacy is remarkably efficient," she observed with scientific detachment that was bellied by her satisfied expression. Marcus laughed. "I've never heard it called efficient before." "It's a compliment," she assured him. "Zer can take days to achieve what we just experienced." Then she glanced at the chronometer. 47 minutes. Marcus repeated, impressed despite himself. "Maybe there are advantages to your way too." Tia's expression grew more serious. when we reverse the effects of the device. I'll lose this sensitivity, this experience. Marcus propped himself up on one elbow. Does that bother you? I'm a scientist, she replied. I value the experience of discovery, even temporary. One, she paused, then added more softly, but I will miss this connection. Before Marcus could respond, the fabricator beeped loudly, signaling completion. Reality came crashing back. The decoy, he said reluctantly, disentangling himself from Tia, and the professor will be wondering where we are, she added, quickly readjusting her uniform. As they gathered the fabricated components, their hands brushed, and Tara gave them a small private smile. Whatever happens next, Marcus Hale, I'm glad you mistook that device for a climate control panel. When they returned to the main laboratory, Professor Val was hunched over a complex array of equipment, muttering to himself in the musical Zeri language. He glanced up as they entered, his keen eyes taking in their slightly disheveled appearance, and the flush still evident on Tia's yellow skin. I see you two have been thoroughly discussing the situation, he remarked dryly. Marcus cleared his throat, holding up the fabricated decoy. Got the housing components? Excellent, V nodded, tactfully changing the subject. And I've prepared the reversal sequence. We should be ready to proceed within the hour. Tyra moved to examine the professor's work, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding everything else. You've modified the original protocols, had to V confirmed. The device affected your neural pathways in ways we didn't anticipate a standard reversal might damage those connections. Marcus joined them, setting the decoy components on a nearby workbench. Is it dangerous? All medical procedures carry risk, V it pragmatically. But I've minimized it. The primary concern is ensuring complete cellular restoration without compromising neural integrity. As Vil continued explaining the technical details, Marcus noticed Tia suddenly stiffen, her head turning sharply toward the laboratory door. What is it? He asked. I don't know, she replied, her voice hushed. I just had the strangest sensation, like a pressure wave moving through the station. Val and Marcus exchanged confused glances. I don't feel anything, Marcus said. Nor I, added Val. Tia pressed her hand against her enhanced chest. It's here in me, a vibration of warning, as if on key. The station alert system activated, bathing the laboratory in pulsing amber light. Attention, all personnel. Commander's voice echoed through the comp system. We are experiencing fluctuations in the primary power grid. Non-essential systems will be temporarily deactivated. Engineering teams, report to your stations. Marcus was already moving toward the door. That's me. I need to report in. Wait, Tia called, grabbing his arm. Her eyes were wide with an emotion he couldn't quite identify. Marcus, I felt it before the alert. I knew something was wrong. Vil moved closer, his scientific interest just peaked. Fascinating. The enhanced tissue must be acting as some sort of sensory receptor, perhaps responding to subtle electromagnetic variations. Whatever it is, I need to go, Marcus insisted. Power grid failures can cascade quickly on a station this size. Tia's grip tightened. I'm coming with you. That's not protocol, Marcus began. If I can sense these fluctuations before your instruments detect them, I could help prevent a catastrophic failure, Tia argued. Besides, we still have hours before the reversal becomes critical. Val nodded thoughtfully. She has a point, and I can use the time to finish assembling the decoy and refining the reversal procedure. Marcus hesitated only briefly. All right, but stay close. Engineering sections can be dangerous during power fluctuations. The main engineering hub was chaos. When they arrived, technicians from various species rushed between workstations, shouting updates and instructions. Chief Engineer Boran, a burly Tauran with 4 arms and a perpetual scowl, spotted Marcus immediately. Hell, where the hell have you been? We've got grid failures in sectors 7 through 12. Sorry, sir, Marcus replied quickly, moving to his assigned station. What's the source? Unknown, Vin growled. Power surges are cascading through the system faster than we can isolate them. Truss stepped forward. Chief Boran, I may be able to help locate the source. Boran's scowl deepened. Thal, this is an engineering emergency, not a science experiment. And what happened to your... He gestured vaguely at her chest, then seemed to think better of it. Never mind, we don't have time for distractions. Sir, Marcus interjected. Dr. Fu has developed a sensitivity to electromagnetic fluctuations. She sensed this failure before the alerts triggered. Boran looked skeptical, but desperate. Fine, but keep out of the way of my engineers, as Marcus worked to reroute power around the failing grid sections. Tia closed her eyes, concentrating on the strange sensations flowing through her enhanced tissue. There, she said, suddenly pointing to a schematic of the station. The fluctuations are strongest in that section. Morven checked the readings. That's environmental control for the lower decks, but our sensors show normal operation there. Trust me, Tia insisted. Something's wrong in that system. Marcus looked up from his console. The environmental systems have been acting up all week. That's what I was fixing when he trailed off, glancing at Tia's enhanced chest. What Boran demanded when I noticed some unusual power. Reading Marcus finished smoothly, but nothing that would cause this level of disruption. Boran hesitated, then made a decision. He'll take Drorth and check it out. If she's right, we need to know fast. If she's wrong, get back here immediately. The journey to the environmental control center took longer than usual, with several turbo lifts offline due to the power fluctuations. As they made their way through dimly lit maintenance quarters, Marcus couldn't help noticing how TI seemed to be navigating almost instinctively, turning down junctions before he could consult the schematics. How are you doing that? He asked, as she led them through a particularly complex intersection. I can feel the disruption, she explained, her hand resting on her chest. They're getting stronger this way. Is it uncomfortable? Tra considered this not painful, exactly, more like an awareness, as if I've gained an entirely new sense. That's incredible, Marcus said, genuine admiration in his voice. Most humans would panic if their bodies suddenly developed new abilities. Ziri viewed the body as adaptable, Tia replied with a small smile, though I admit this particular adaptation has been challenging to adjust to. Their eyes met in the dim corridor, the memory of their earlier intimacy hanging between them. Marcus felt a surge of something that went beyond physical attraction, a deepening connection that both thrilled and terrified him. The moment was broken by a violent shudder that ran through the station, nearly knocking them off their feet. The emergency lights flickered ominously. We need to hurry, Tia said, her voice tight with urgency. Whatever is happening is accelerating. They reached the environmental control center to find it airy deserted. The usual technicians apparently called to other emergencies. The main console pulsed with warning indicators displaying critical failures throughout the system. Marcus immediately began accessing the diagnostic protocols, his fingers flying over the interface. This doesn't make sense. The system shows massive power draws, but nothing's actually running at full capacity. Tia moved around the room, her enhanced senses guiding her. She stopped before a seemingly ordinary wall panel. Here, it's strongest here. Marcus joined her, examining the panel. That's not standard equipment. It looks like the device that enhanced me. Tia finished, her eyes widening, but much larger. Working together, they removed the panel to reveal a sophisticated apparatus integrated directly into the station's power grid, pulsing with energy. It bore the unmistakable hallmarks of the Mensuar technology, but on a scale far beyond the handheld device that had affected Tra. Someone's been adapting the technology, or Marcus muttered, carefully examining the connections, using the station's power grid to amplify it. But for what purpose? Tra wondered, then gas as realization struck Marcus. If this is broadcasting the same kind of enhancement field that affected me, it could be affecting the entire station, Marcus concluded grimly. Or worse, targeting specific systems for some kind of sabotage. Tia's enhanced sensitivity suddenly flared, causing her to clutch at her chest with a sharp intake of breath. Something's changing. The pattern is shifting. Marcus checked the readings. Power surge building. We need to disconnect it now. As he reached for the main power coupling, Tia grabbed his wrist. Wait, if we just cut the power, it could trigger a fail-safe. We need to deactivate it properly. How? We barely understand the handheld version. Tra took a deep breath, steeling herself. I think I can communicate with it through whatever connection it established with me. That's too dangerous, Marcus protested. We don't know what it could do to you. We don't have time for alternatives, Tia countered, already positioning herself closer to the device. The station's primary systems are failing. Thousands of lives are at risk. Before Marcus could argue further, Tia placed her hands Directly on the device, her body went rigid, her blue eyes widening as energy visibly coursed between her and the machine. Tia Marcus moved to pull her away, but she shook her head sharply. "I can see the pattern," she gasped. "It's trying to reconfigure the station's life support systems, changing the molecular composition of the air. Why? I don't know, but I can redirect it." Her face contorted with concentration. "Help me. The interface is similar to the handheld device. We need to reverse the polarity of the main emitter working." Frantically under Tia's guidance, Marcus reconfigured the device's controls. The pulsing energy began to stabilize, its angry red glow fading to a more subdued blue. "It's working," Tia whispered, her voice strained. "But there's something else, a signature. Someone programmed this deliberately." As the device powered down, Tri collapsed into Marcus's arms, exhausted but triumphant. The emergency lights stabilized, and the distant alarms began to silence. "You did it," Marcus said, cradling her against his chest. "You saved the station." Tia looked up at him, her expression a mixture of wonder and concern. "But at what cost? The reversal procedure, and we may have missed our window." Marcus checked his chronometer and felt his stomach drop. 23 hours. Since the enhancement, we have less than an hour before the changes become permanent. Tia's hand went to her enhanced chest, a complex emotion crossing her face. "These changes, they just save thousands of lives." "But you never wanted them," Marcus reminded her gently. "No," she agreed, "but now I have to decide if losing them is worth the risk, especially when they might be needed again." The station's system crackled to life. "Attention, all personnel, the power grid has been stabilized. Engineering teams report status immediately. This is Commander Drell. I want answers." Marcus helped Tia to her feet, both of them aware that they just stumbled onto something much bigger than an accidental enhancement. "We need to get back to Vale," Marcus said. "He needs to know about this larger device, and we need to decide about your reversal fast." As they hurried back through the now brightening corridors, Tia's hand found Marcus, their fingers intertwining. Naturally, whatever they decided, Marcus realized they would face it together, a human and a Zuri united by circumstance, attraction, and now a mystery that threatened the entire station. They were halfway back to the laboratory when Commander Dr's imposing figure blocked their path, flanked by 2 security officers. Duthal technician hailed. Dr's 6 eyes narrowed as they took in Tia's enhanced appearance and their disheveled state. "I believe you owe me an explanation now." Marcus stepped slightly forward, instinctively protective. "Sir, we've just prevented a major station catastrophe. The power fluctuations were caused by a modified MCR device integrated into the environmental system's MCR device." Dr's expression darkened further. "The same technology that appears to have altered Durthal's physiology." Tara straightened her posture, professional dignity overcoming embarrassment. "Yes, Commander, the original incident was accidental, but we've discovered someone has been adapting the technology for station-wide application with potentially lethal consequences." Marcus added, "If Durthal hadn't sensed the disruptions." "Sensed?" Deer interrupted. "A side effect of the enhancement." Trera explained. "I've developed sensitivity to electromagnetic fluctuations. It allowed us to locate the sabotage device before critical systems failed." Drell was silent for a long moment, his stone-like features unreadable. Finally, he dismissed the security officers with a gesture. "My office, both of you, immediately." Dr's office reflected his personality, austere, organized, and intimidating. He listened without interruption as they explained everything: the accidental enhancement, Professor Vale's assistance, the 24-hour window, and their discovery of the larger device. "So," he said when they finished, "you're telling me that an unauthorized experiment has given Durthal abilities that save my station, and these abilities will become permanent within." He checked the time. 20 minutes. "Yes, sir," Marcus confirmed. "And you believe someone deliberately planted a larger version of this technology to sabotage our life support systems?" "The evidence suggests it." Tia nodded. "The programming was too specific to be accidental." Dr's stony face finally showed emotion, concern. "This is troubling. We've received intelligence about potential threats to the station, but nothing this sophisticated." Commander Tia said, her hand unconsciously moving to her enhanced chest. "I need to make a decision about the reversal procedure." "What decision?" Deer asked. "Surely you want to return to your normal state." Tia exchanged a glance with Marcus. The enhancements have proven valuable without them. We might not have detected the sabotage in time. You're considering keeping them. Durr sounded surprised. For the safety of the station, Tia said firmly. My personal comfort is secondary to the lives of everyone aboard. Marcus felt a surge of admiration for her courage, mixed with concern about what this would mean for her future, and potentially their future together. Jell studied her for a long moment. Your dedication is commendable, Dr. Thou, but unnecessary. He pressed a button on his desk, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a secure compartment from it. He removed a device, similar to the one that had enhanced Tia, but more refined. This is the Make-8 prototype. Durr explained, a more controlled version of the technology you encountered. It can be calibrated for specific enhancements without the unintended physical alterations. Marcus and Trask stared in shock. You knew about this techno all along? Marcus asked. Of course, Drell replied matter-of-factly. I'm the station commander. The MCR project has been under development for years as a potential medical and security application. What I didn't know was that someone had created an unauthorized version and integrated it into our systems so I could keep the sensory abilities without. Tia gestured to her enhanced chest. Precisely. Durr nodded. Though we'll need Professor Vill's expertise for the calibration, as if summoned by his name. Val's voice came through the comp system. Commander Drell, this is Professor Val. I believe I have information relevant to your current discussion with Durthal, and Technician Hailtrell raised an eyebrow, but activated the comm. Go ahead, Professor. I've completed analysis of the decoy device components. V reported they contain a signature. I recognize the work of Dr. Mayer in Corv, my former research partner. He was dismissed from the project years ago for advocating extreme applications of the technology. Could he have planted the larger device? Marcus asked. It matches his methodology, Val confirmed, and he had access to the original designs. Drell was already issuing orders through a separate comm channel. Security initiate station-wide search for Darmarin Corv. Priority 1. 3 days later, Marcus found himself in an unfamiliar position, seated at the commander's table during a formal recognition ceremony. Dr. Corv had been apprehended attempting to flee the station, and subsequent investigation had revealed his plan to reconfigure the station's atmosphere to be more hospitable to his species, while harmful to others. For exceptional service and bravery, TR announced. Starbase Epsilon recognizes Tia Thal and Technician Marcus Hale as applause filled the room. Marcus glanced at Tra beside him. The Make-8 procedure had been successful. Her physical form had returned to normal while preserving her enhanced sensory abilities. She caught his eye and smiled, a private communication that made his heart race. Later, as the ceremony concluded, they found themselves alone on an observation deck, the vast expanse of stars stretching before them. So Marcus said, leaning against the railing, head of the new MCR security division. Impressive promotion. Tia moved closer, her shoulder brushing his. Not as impressive as your new position as Chief of Environmental Security. Who knew accidentally pushing random buttons would lead to career advancement? They laughed together, the ease between them a stark contrast to their first awkward encounter just days ago. Do you miss them? Marcus asked suddenly. Your enhancements? Tia considered this, her blue eyes thoughtful against her yellow skin. Sometimes they were educational, especially about humans. Educational? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Humans experience everything so intensely, she explained, her voice softening every sensation, every emotion. It's overwhelming but beautiful. I understand now why your species is so driven, so passionate. Marcus turned to face her fully. And now that you're back to normal. Normal is relative, she replied with a smile, taking his hand and placing it over her heart. I may have lost certain physical attributes, but I've gained something more valuable, a human perspective. And she hesitated, then continued more softly, a connection I wasn't expecting. As they leaned toward each other, the stars bearing witness to their embrace, Marcus reflected on how an accidental enhancement had led to something neither of them could have anticipated: a bridge between their worlds built on understanding, respect, and a shared adventure that had only just begun. He murmured against her lips for a scientific mishap. This turned out pretty well. Tia's laughter, musical and uninhibited, echoed through the observation deck. Indeed, though perhaps next time you should read the labels before pushing buttons. Where's the fun in that? Marcus grinned, pulling her closer as the station continued its eternal orbit, carrying them forward into whatever adventure awaited next.